Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I have a fantastic guest with me today, and there are two things that he talks about that are really near and dear to my heart, which is, dogs and men. And Michael Overlie, I'm going to start this over again because that just sucked. Okay, I have great editing skills. Okay, here
You
we
go.
go. Okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And as always, I have a fantastic guest with me today. His name is Michael Overlie. He is a canine partnered energy coach who helps dogs and their men transform stress into peace by using his D.O.G method. He is the author of the book titled Let Your Dog Lead: Musings on How to Create an Exceptional Life, and co-author of The Change: Insights into Self-Empowerment. He is also the founder of the nonprofit called Save Two, which focuses on saving lives at both ends of the leash. Oh, Michael, I just love that. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. What a joy. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I remember the first time we talked, I was talking about your swords and I saw your swords. I'm like, oh, I got to talk to this woman. I don't even know if we talked about the martial arts that I study, but I actually studied Iaido for a while.
Oh my goodness, I did not know that.
Oh yeah. I think I obviously forgot to mention that. I wasn't disciplined enough to stick with it, but oh my God, it was amazing.
Well,
So
I think we really didn't have a whole lot of conversation interaction because we're on like a group call. So there were like two other people on the call. So
mm,
we didn't get real in depth, but when I saw that, what your business was, Dogs and Men LLC, I just knew that I wanted to have you on the show.
yeah.
And of course, you're a fellow Coloradan, so why not?
Oh yeah, yeah. Don't tell people how nice it is here.
Well, it
Oops.
isn't. Yeah. Oh dear. Well, okay. As of today, we're under a blizzard warning, I think, for tomorrow morning and here in Denver. I know. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not seeing this. And apparently we're not expecting a lot of snow, but we're expecting a lot of really high winds and blizzard-like conditions. So it's going to start at 4 o'clock in the morning, but hey, they've been wrong before. So you never know. That's the joy of living in Colorado.
Yep. You don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
That's right, exactly. So, Michael, I love your story from what I know about it. I love what you're doing. So, why don't you just tell us, share with the audience how you became this energy coach specializing in dogs and men?
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good story. It starts off in a very painful way with the
Mm.
death of my brother.
Oh, I'm so
So
sorry.
oh no, it's okay. I mean, the funny thing is now it's like it was the best gift I ever received was his
Mm,
passing.
hmm.
Oh, March 18th, 2017, or sorry,
Oh,
2018. I got a phone call real early in the morning, and it was like 3:30 in the morning, and no one calls
wow.
me 3:30. And I kind of ignored it, and then the phone started ringing again, and now I'm pissed off. I get on and march out to the kitchen. I grab my phone, and I saw it was my mom, and right away I knew Bob was either dead or dying.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I'd been waiting for this call for a number of years. He had a bad heart.
Okay.
So I answered the phone, and she told me he was in the ICU, and it didn't look good. And I need to get my ass up there now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, I was in actually living in the Springs at the time, raced up to Longmont, and
Wow.
later that day we took him off life support.
Oh,
And what happened a few days later was the catalyst for this whole thing. I was at home and something told me to lay down. Just you better lay down. And I'm like, oh shit, what's that? So I laid back in this reclining chair I had, and I just ruptured. I was torn open with grief. My older brother was my hero, right? He was
mm.
this amazing guy. Um, and it was like I'd lost the last support I had in my life. Like that's
Oh,
really how I felt. And I was crying and writhing around in pain. Like I
oh,
felt like I was being torn in half. I mean, I was actually scared. I didn't know what was going on.
yeah.
And there's my dog. There's Darby, right? That's actually here. Here's Darby.
Oh, you're beautiful. She's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a good guy.
Mm. Oh, he.
But he just sat holding space for me. And then when I calmed down finally, he crawls up on my chest,
Oh,
literally lays his body across me and just starts pumping me full of like love and healing energy. And had never been exposed to that before. I didn't even know what that was. Um, I was like, what on earth is this? I mean, I was like glowing and, felt like I was golden color. It was phenomenal. And afterwards, I started looking into it. Well,
uh-huh.
found out later my mom's an energy worker.
Okay.
I just wasn't in a space where I could understand it or hear it.
Hmm.
And I became ravenous and I started training in all these modalities. And the first one was healing touch for animals, of course.
Of course.
And I was like, why don't more people understand what's going on out there? Why can't they see this? Why don't they know? And it's like, well,
Hmm.
they just can't notice it. They're not aware. So that was the catharsis that set me down this path to help
Hmm.
men pull their
Hmm.
heads out of their butts, um, and actually create the lives that they really want, not what somebody else told them to have.
Mm.
But that you have to maybe go through some things and remove some things before you can add some things to your life.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I could look back at all the other dogs in my life and, what
Hmm.
was going on in my life at the time and what I
Hmm.
received from that dog at the time. And
Hmm.
I was like, wow, when I was 12, my dog Sage kept me alive because I was having suicidal thoughts after my dad left the family.
Oh.
Right. But I never kind of put it together and he just
Uh-huh.
helped me work my way through it. But looking back, I was like, oh my God, if he hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here.
Hmm.
Right. And then my
Hmm.
next dog, and then my next dog, and my dogs got me through divorce and, all these things. That's just phenomenal. They hold this
Hmm.
space for us, have this level of acceptance, and it's beyond unconditional love. People like
Hmm.
to throw that around. I don't think we really know what that is.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that just created this whole mission that I'm on.
Hmm. Boy, they don't judge, do they? They are so sensitive and they always know. This is going to sound silly, but they always know what to say or not say or what to do or not do. I mean, they're just there for us.
Yeah.
I am a devout dogaholic. I think when I was born, I was probably saying doggy before I could say mama. And, I've had dogs all my life. And, we even ran a doggy rescue. My husband and I, after I finished graduate school, we were the Colorado Italian Greyhound Rescue for the All Breed Rescue Network in Colorado. We did that for 7 years. And yeah, it's just the bond between a human and their animal is just so powerful. It's so amazing. It's just so gratifying that if somebody isn't an animal lover, especially a dog lover, I don't trust them because there's something missing. You don't have a heart.
Yeah, I get that. They're
Yeah.
everybody's where they're at for a reason.
Yeah.
I think we all have lessons to learn, and sometimes we get it, and sometimes we don't.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel so happy when I drive down the street and I'll see someone walking their dog. I'm like, would you look at that lucky human? You know, I I do it all the time, and Dana, she's like, oh God, you know,
Oh, I know. I do the same thing. It's like,
uh,
we'll be driving somewhere and we see somebody walking their dog and I just said, "Oh, look, they're with their human. They're so happy." And there's a homeless guy. I'm not sure if he really is homeless, on a street corner not far from us. And if he is homeless, he takes care of his dog better than he takes care of himself. That dog he has a coat on, he's so well fed. And the dog is just there with him. And they both look actually really healthy and relatively happy.
well, that bond and that partnership, that
Mm-hmm.
relationship helps both of them survive and then thrive in their own
Mm-hmm.
way, right? They don't have to land a good job and drive a car and all
Right.
that. This society is so screwed up in what we think is important.
Mm-hmm.
But that relationship, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
actually teach around this how for a lot of men and women too, but for men, that might be their primary relationship
Mm-hmm.
even if they have a wife and kids and other things.
Mm-hmm.
This is the relationship where they get other needs met that they just can't get in other areas of their life. So the homeless dogs are usually better taken care of than a lot
Right.
of other dogs.
You know,
Um,
well,
quick
I
shout
have
out
to say,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I'm no expert, but I would think that actually it's a stronger bond between men and dogs. I mean, women and dogs, we've got our bond, of course, and it is very strong, but I think it's a lot easier for men to be vulnerable with their dogs, to open up to their dogs. And it's really pretty scary and not always safe to be opening up and being honest and vulnerable with another human being.
Yeah.
Because once you put yourself out there,
Yeah.
you don't know what's coming back at you. The judgment, all kind of things that aren't very healthy.
Oh, well, you're right. And as men, most of us are raised,
Mhm.
trained to not open up, to not show emotion, to not show fear, to be the breadwinner, to be this, to do that, to save everybody, to fix everything. We don't know what the hell's going on.
Mhm.
We don't understand our emotions, let alone how to identify or process them. You know, I,
Right.
I talk about men being emotionally illiterate, and
Mhm.
it's not a criticism, it's just a reality. We
Mhm.
just don't have the skills. We don't have the information and then applied learning and knowledge to be able to work our way through things. We can
Mhm.
express anger really well. A
Mhm.
lot of times it may be, sadness or fear or depression or anxiety, but we don't know how to express those, so we express anger.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and all the other emotions get suppressed, which we all know that really doesn't work that well either. But when you don't have any other way of expressing yourself, you have nowhere to go. What do? You just stuff it.
Yeah, I worked with a guy who was a retired special forces sniper, and
Ooh.
the way he puts it, he goes, "I put that shit in my ruck, I throw it in my footlocker, I lock that son of a bitch up, I throw it in another room, then I lock that up."
Mm.
So accessing those places is so difficult. But that's for these guys, that's where the dogs come in. They've got a key that gets past all of that. It's just
Mhm.
helping them, take one tiny bit, build that other skill, and
Mhm.
apply it to another relationship.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just
So
with one of their buddies.
okay, so now when you realize this incredible healing power of the dogs and the energy and the symbiotic relationship, especially between men and their dogs, when did the light bulb go off for you that you really wanted to, to coach? You wanted to turn this actually into a business where you can help other men.
About 3 years ago.
Mm.
So I wasn't sure what I was going to do with,
Mhm.
what I had opened up to and what I had been introducing myself to. Um, at one point, I'm gonna save all dogs, right? They're the
Right.
ones worth saving. Humans suck. So I started a canine nutrition business. I'm actually a pet food nutrition specialist. I
Mhm.
tried all these other things, and I'm like, this stuff just isn't clicking. I'm like, what am I doing? And one day I went, oh, the dogs are fine.
It's the people who
It's
are
the
screwed up.
people who need help. And yeah, let's go. And that actually brought me back, right? Because I was getting a little big for my britches. That brought me back to taking care of the guy in the mirror so that I could
Mm.
actually create something better. Now, like you can't teach somebody something you don't know, right? Or you
Right.
can't lead somebody through something you've never been through. So, um, yeah, and it's a continual process for me.
Mhm. So how did your own personal process then, what did that look like? Did you just sit down with your dog and say, "Okay, we're gonna have a talk"?
Well, what's funny is I've been deeply connected to animals since I was a kid,
Mhm,
and I think I probably always talked to them.
mhm,
And I think as a kid, I probably received messages back easily.
mhm.
As we get adulted,
Right.
we
Yes,
shut all
yes.
that stuff off.
Yeah, we have to be grown up. Mhm,
Um, and I just wanted to, I'm like, what are you doing? And I started getting more curious, like, why are you doing X, Y, or Z, or what are you looking at over there? Um, and I just wanted to know more about,
mhm,
how they move through their day and how their energy moves, right? Because like a dog can go from I'm going to tear you into pieces with another dog to calm chilling with a Kong on a pillow 5 minutes later,
right.
right? So they can quickly change states. You mentioned holding grudges before. We're, you know, we're captains at that, right? We're generals of holding grudges against others. The dogs are like, they literally shake it off. They discharge that harmful negative energy
Mhm,
and then move on. It's like, oh my God. So I became fascinated with reading animals and their energy and then applying that to people.
mhm. So I love that, the discharging the negative energy, because what you're talking about, and now I'm going to get a little bit geeky about talking about, neurology, the nervous system, and how I think one of the reasons why there are so many of us who are just a total mess and, so depressed and don't even can hardly function during the day sometime is because our nervous systems are always on high alert. So we live in the sympathetic nervous system. And that is such a perfect example when you look at a dog, it's like, okay, they're all aroused and, and then all of a sudden they can re-regulate and deregulate or de-escalate their nervous system. Just, I mean, it just happens for them and they move on with their lives. Humans don't do that.
No, no, we have this thing in there called an ego, which we still need, right? It's a basic survival mechanism, and it actually does things for us that are beneficial. But what it also does is it creates stories around an event that may or may not be accurate,
Yeah.
and then they hype up. It's like, bad marketing. They hype up all this crap you don't want to see, and there's a story created around it. So what we do with that is we hold an energy around the story created. We create a belief around that. I mean, and where does it stop? It's unfathomable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the dogs, they don't create a story around an event. They still have an energetic memory of things of
Mm-hmm.
sorts, but they don't have this thing that is so useful to us in some ways that makes it really difficult on us and others.
Mhm. Yeah, and once that is in your head and you start, like what, just chewing on it, let's say that, like a dog with a bone, and ruminating on it and going through that script over and over, it gets more powerful. It's almost like a snowball going down the hill. That it picks up more energy, it picks up more steam, it picks up more speed, it picks up more stuff as it's going down that hill until pretty soon, like you're about in the middle of an avalanche and about to get buried.
Yeah. Well, Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza both talk about, well, I'm sure many others too, Wayne Dyer, and some others,
Mm,
about these neural pathways.
mhm.
So we go over something once, it scrapes, right? We
Right.
go over it again and again, and we're starting to dig a trench. So this
Mhm.
this pathway from here to there becomes deeply ingrained, and that's why we so easily go back to this. Maybe it's an anger or rageful state when it's
Mhm.
probably not that big a deal, but we
Mhm.
bam, that's where we go with that because we've literally trained ourselves to go there.
Mhm. And yeah, you're just reinforcing the pattern. I kind of like to describe it almost like as a URL. If you go to a new website for the first time, you have to type in the entire URL and then it pops up. The more often you go to that website, the less you have to type in. And there's a couple of sites that I go to, I just have to just hit the first the first letter and
Yeah.
boom, the site pops up. And that's kind of how our brains work a lot of times. We're like it's a huge computer. All the information that we take in, our brain does not judge, it just records it.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. So our subconscious doesn't judge what we're doing. It
Yeah.
just records the information.
Hmm.
But that's also the stories we create, the negative thoughts, the
Hmm.
patterns, behaviors, whatever. Um, and we are master creators. We
Mm.
create so much for ourselves, like only always. But we don't see it that way, right?
Hmm.
Why is this still happening to me? How come I can't get this? How,
Hmm.
blah blah blah. And I'm not diminishing people. It's just
Right.
we're doing that to ourselves.
Right.
Now, how do you get out of that? That's another great question.
Hmm. I love the way you said that. Why is this still happening to me, or why is that still happening to me? Because we do, again, we feel like we're being victimized, or that takes us into that victim mentality. It's like this is happening to me again. Why is it always me? Why is this happening to me? And unless you can just sit back or stand back and say, okay, how am I going to change the script? And how can I change what is happening? Either approach it a different way or figure out another solution to what it is that is happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you know, been arrested a couple of times, drinking problem. I mean, none of those things were enough to go, huh, I wonder if there's another way, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, that was fascinating. It's absolutely fast. Now I'm like, wow, you know,
Mhm.
how many, they had to shoot me 9 times before I went down. It's, it was up to me, right? So
Uh,
for me, it was, I was 49 years old when my brother died.
mm,
And that was like, oh crap. So something else that I realized that I didn't mention after this event with the grief of him was I saw how I was showing up in the world and I didn't like that guy. Like,
mhm,
oh, well, no wonder. No wonder
mhm,
you feel like this and then like that, and victim and this. These are, whoa. So that I was like, I got to change this,
mhm,
right? No one else can do it for me. I had the realization that I have to change this. I have to work on myself. And then I sought people out who could help me,
mhm.
but it was up to me.
That's fascinating because 2 episodes ago, so that would be what episode, I can't remember, 306 or 30, I think it was episode 306. I interviewed a gentleman who had to turn his life around. He had the same kind of history, multiple addictions, multiple felonies, multiple arrests and being institutionalized, incarcerated. And it was probably, I think he was 44 or 45 when he finally had that mental head smacking moment of,
Mhm.
hey, I got to change things around. Otherwise, I'm not going to be here much longer. So I think that's a really important point for the audience to hear, that you did it at 49. You had that wake up call at 49, that you can change your life and you can change the trajectory that you're on at any stage of your life. You can't say,
Yeah,
hey, I've been doing this for so long. This is just the way it's going to be. You can make that change.
absolutely. There's a lot of people who think, oh, it's just the way I am. Um, I don't I don't like that very much. I think in some ways I think it's a cop out, and you guys can email
Mhm.
me and tell me what a dick I am. But it's true. I mean, no one has as much control over your life as you do.
Mhm.
That's just the way it is. We're trained to think otherwise and believe
Mhm.
otherwise. But I will also say that when I was really trapped in that victim mindset, I couldn't understand that.
Right. Well, I will have to say that the next time you're going to say something like that, please try and don't do it when I'm sipping water, because I
Okay.
almost choked.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that was just so blatantly honest, and I wasn't really expecting that. So thank you for that.
Mm,
That just really cracked me up.
yeah.
But yeah, no, when you are in that victim mentality, you can't see it yourself. But if anybody else had pointed it out to you, what would your response have been? Okay. He didn't say anything. He just did a
Um,
hand gesture for those of you who aren't
yeah.
watching the
Well,
video.
it's fascinating, and even later, it was like you still couldn't tell me anything, right?
Ah,
So we're a lot of us don't want to take direction, don't want to be told what to do in this way, because we have this deep-seated shame
mm,
around not being enough, right?
mhm,
The world tells us a million ways how we're supposed to be. How do
mhm,
you compete with that? So our self-esteem, right?
mhm,
Our self-worth just
mhm,
takes this massive hit.
mhm,
And all of a sudden now you want to change, and
mhm.
but you still hold into this. Nah, I got it. I'll figure it out. Right? No,
Right.
no, no, I'll figure. I know I lost a foot somewhere. I'm bleeding to death, but I'll take care of it. No, I can still drive.
Yeah, right.
My grandfather, while having a massive heart attack, wouldn't let my grandmother drive him to the hospital. He drove. Right? So, hey, retired
Yeah,
military, commander. Um, it was ingrained. Doesn't matter, right? It didn't
that's
matter.
so funny.
He died, right? He made it
Mhm.
to the ambulance bay and went.
Okay, so at least he made it safely
He made
from,
it to the
point A to
hospital.
point B.
I made it to the
Jeez.
hospital. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Well, of course he did.
Yeah. Well, my father drove himself home from his first biopsy, bone marrow biopsy. And my mother was with him and they were walking toward the car. And it was like all of a sudden his leg just collapsed, went out from underneath him because, hey, yeah, they stuck a big old needle in your, pelvic bone. And yeah,
It's
hello.
it's about
It's a
this big.
it's a biggie. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he wasn't gonna let anybody drive him home. He was exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
getting back to the victim mentality and people pointing it out to you, and of course we don't want to be told what to do. And again, it's the shame, but it's almost like a that little prick, a little pinprick or something just poking you when you hear that. It's like poking a bear. But on the other hand, when you finally get to that power of self-awareness or get to that self-awareness, there's so much more to be discovered and so much more empowerment in the journey of self-discovery, even though it might not be pretty, it might not be easy, it might be the ugliest thing you ever do, but that's where your real knowledge and your inner wisdom starts to show.
You got it. Think of it as buried treasure, right?
Mm.
Now, here's the thing. You buried it,
Mhm,
but you don't even remember what the hell you buried.
mhm, mhm,
So, as we do this work, and this is my take on it, we start digging, and this is part
mhm.
of my D.O.G method. We start digging, and we're like, oh, okay. I was hoping for like jewels and something I could cash into my Ferrari. Well, this is something that I don't want anybody to see, and I'm going to have to work on. Right. So
Mhm,
we uncover things, and there are things about us that it might be a memory that we like
mhm,
hid for a good reason.
mhm,
Right. We buried for
mhm.
good reason. It might be some other thing about ourselves we just don't like. It's like, oh, yuck.
Yeah.
But if you work on that thing, you're gonna you open up a little more. So the
Mhm,
other side of this is you're making space for something else,
mhm.
right? So we're gonna heal this chunk of coal in your chest, and it's gonna, now you've got room for maybe a better job to come in, maybe some love in your life, whatever it is. And it doesn't
Mhm.
happen overnight, but
Right.
that's the concept. If you don't make space for something good and hold on to the bad stuff, then you're just going to be stuck with the bad stuff.
Let's go back to the DOG then. So the D for your DOG program, the D is the digging. So that's kind of like the exploratory discovery
Hmm.
phase of things. And once you discover it, again, I'm thinking it's not going to be pretty all the time. It could be very upsetting, but at
Hmm.
least it's out in the open and you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So what is the O?
The O is observe.
Ooh.
So you don't have to do something about it right this second. A lot of times I tell people not to do something right. Don't react, right?
Okay.
You don't have to react because we're so reactive here. We don't respond well.
Hmm.
But observe it, and you got to be with it for a little bit and be like, oh man, what, you know do I know what this is from? Do I know why it's there?
Hmm.
Just be curious about it, but observe it.
Hmm.
Just observe it, and like, okay, I'm okay sitting here just observing this thing. It's not doing anything else to me, right?
Hmm.
It's ugly and it
Hmm.
hurts, but I'm actually okay. So the
Hmm.
observing part is very important because we have such a hard time sitting with things that are uncomfortable.
Hmm. So with that, I mean, because I can understand how when you uncover something that really is pretty awful, do you have people get very reactive and kind of freak out, or are they shocked, or do they say, no, that can't possibly be true? I mean, do people accept it, or does it take a while? Is that why you have the time for the observation?
Yeah, all of the above.
I see.
All of the above. I mean, people, no one is ever in the same place as somebody else.
Hmm.
So let's say you have five guys going through this group program. All five of them, we do this thing. They come to this awareness of like, oh God, I didn't realize that's what was there.
Hmm.
And each one's going to handle it a little differently. That's
Hmm.
that's the purpose behind the observation period of it is
Hmm.
don't do anything about it. You don't have
Hmm.
to put out, there's no fires to put out. This has been
Hmm.
sitting there a long time. Let's let it breathe.
Hmm.
Think of it as a fine wine. You want it to breathe, right? Give it just, yeah, give it that room to do that.
Okay, then what is the G?
So the G, we go into give. So
Mhm.
give it what it actually needs. And you may not know what that is. Maybe you give yourself even more time. Maybe if you're in a place to do this, you can give yourself a little compassion around it.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you give it attention by reaching out for someone to help you further with whatever that issue or situation is. Maybe you give yourself some space by going and taking your dog for a walk.
Hmm.
You know
Do
what?
you mean like the one that's barking right now upstairs?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So you give it what you think it needs, and that may have to
Mhm.
change. We don't always get it
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
if you can't observe it, then you will never know what you actually need.
That's a fascinating approach and thinking of it that way as giving it what it needs. And I think that when you do that, does that just kind of like take the energy away from it or the power away from it? It
Yeah,
diffuses it.
it dissipates it, right? It
Mhm.
may not completely diffuse it. But
Mhm.
for some people, they're there, they're ready for that. But for
Mhm.
others, it dissipates it enough to where it's
Mhm.
manageable, and they can actually make a plan or take some action towards
Mhm.
working on that one thing.
So I'm really curious too, because I mean, it is brilliant, and I love that, especially because it's D.O.G. And how did you come up with that? When did you come up with that? I'm thinking that, my most incredible moments of brilliance usually happen at 3 o'clock in the morning. So when did that happen, or how did it happen? Did it just come to you when you were walking your dog, or doing what I do, sweating at 3 o'clock in the morning?
So I crave simplicity now,
Mhm.
like in a big way, in a big way. Our world is very complex with so many, like trying to run your own business, right? All of
Yeah,
the pieces that go into that no one ever sees,
right.
right? All the stuff behind the scenes just to make your podcast happen, just to do your
Mhm.
marketing, whatever it is. It's complex. And I don't do complex well. I
Mhm.
need simple. So
Mhm.
I kept filtering down, removing. And I think one day I was looking at indigo and I'm like, well, duh. And this, I get up at 3:30 every day. Dana and I do. We have
Wow.
this amazing routine. We get up at 3:30 in the morning. We sip coffee, hold hands, talk, sometimes not. Like we get a fire in the fireplace when Indigo's on the couch with us. And it's just like this beautiful meditative healing space, right?
Mhm.
But one morning I was like, it's gotta, I know I gotta whittle this. I think I had like a 6 step thing. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We gotta, I don't even want to do that. So I'm like, okay, I gotta make it simpler. And I was just looking at Indigo, and I was just rolling on her back doing something. I'm like, oh, duh, there it is.
Mhm.
The dog method. Duh.
Mhm. And then the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah, getting up at 3:30 in the morning just doesn't sound appealing. I usually get up somewhere between 5 and 5:30. I used to
Um,
think that, when I was much younger and I was working as a respiratory therapist, and, of course, our shift started, I had to be at the hospital like at 6 o'clock in the morning. And all I would think of is when I'm retired, I'm going to be able to sleep until 9 o'clock or however I want to. And I'm not retired, but I don't have a hard schedule like I did then. And it's like, why am I up at 5 o'clock in the morning? But if I get out of bed, go to the couch, the dogs will come with me if my husband's still asleep. We sit on the couch. Sometimes I light the fire, turn it on. It's gas one. Or sometimes I even just listen to the pilot light and sit there on the couch with the dogs and my knitting. And it's like my day is starting off so much easier
yes.
than hitting the ground running and having all of this information
Hmm.
thrown at you. He'll turn on the TV to listen to the news. And I'm like, no, please save me. Don't do that. Right. So, yeah. So it's always a much smoother entry into the day. And there have been
Yeah.
times when I would get up when I was working on my first book, and like 3 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up and I would like, I'm awake. I might as well just get moving and do something. So I'd go to my computer and start writing. And it was the best time because no one was bothering me. And that to me
Yes.
is the most creative time of day for not only for myself, but for everybody. That's when we're just getting out of that sleep, but we're in an alternate or alternative like universe or mindset. And then the thoughts just come.
That's so important. This is actually one of my programs that I have. So I'm creating an online community around all of this.
Hmm.
And there's one of the courses in there. We actually
Hmm.
show you how to do this for yourself and talk. And it doesn't have to be 3:30 in the morning because not
Right.
everybody's on the same schedule, but it's finding that magic time, right? And
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
so creative and so open and available during that time. But for some people, it's like late in the afternoon
Oh,
or late at night, right? and that's okay. Whatever works
Yeah.
for you, but utilize that.
Yeah.
That's where you do your best work, and your creativity flows.
Yep. Yep. So really, once you find that time, milk it for everything you've got. Okay. So speaking of writing, so you wrote a book, and what was it that made you decide, hey, it's time to write a book?
I somehow got told, who was, oh, I remember a friend of mine in Australia
Hmm.
who's very intuitive. Whoa. Do not want to be on the wrong side of this lady. But she said, oh, she goes, you're going to write 3 books. And I'm like, what, Sandy, whatever, Sandy. And then one day I was like, oh, I got to write a book. And so I actually purchased a publishing package through it's a Outskirts Press out of Parker.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
um, and I bought this package, but I kept putting it off. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. Like
Hmm.
no one's ever going to read it. Anyway,
Hmm.
all the
Hmm.
typical stuff. And it was coming down to the wire, and I'm like, oh no, I really need to do this because the package was going to expire, right? It was like
Oh.
I prepaid for this thing a couple of years previous, and so I got into it. Man, I was writing, but I was writing the fluffiest, crappiest, just like, bleh. Like, who am I trying to be? And I still get into this place. Like,
Hmm.
that's not me. And then I remember I had all these books by Steve Chandler. Do you know who he is?
I don't.
He's a big dog in the coaching space, and he's just this
A big
super,
dog.
super, yeah, right, super genuine guy, right? He's just genuine, but his writing style is what just I was like, oh, so he can write a chapter that's only a paragraph long, but he makes
Mm.
he makes his impact in that paragraph, and then he moves on. I'm like, I don't have to write 15, 20 pages. I don't have to,
Mhm.
get in, get out, make my point. So that's what I did. And I, but that only solved part of the problem. Well, now what the hell am I going to write about? Because I didn't like what I was doing at all. And I remember I looked over, I had a stack of leather bound journals, since doing all my healing work. I'd been writing and writing and writing hundreds, thousands of pages. And I'm like, oh, there's my book. So I spent time going through, dog earring pages, marking this, circling that, and I just created these short little snippets, 33 chapters, and yeah,
Nice. Okay, that's another point I want to highlight for the listeners. It's amazing you have a treasure trove somewhere. I mean, if you're thinking about writing a book, you've probably already written it because it can be in a journal, it can be in, a form of just sticky notes. It can be, for me, it was blog posts. I didn't realize because I'd been writing, somebody set up a blog for me. And when she did it, it was like, oh, thanks a lot. I don't know what a blog is. I don't know why I would, want one. I don't know what to do with this. So I had to kind of figure it out on my own and ended up with, several really good blog posts. And it was like, oh my gosh, there's the outline for the first book.
yeah. Everybody's got a story. And if you don't
Hmm.
publish a book, that's okay. You don't have to.
Right.
But share your story with somebody,
Hmm.
right? You have no idea how you might inspire someone. Maybe you just plant a seed that like 9 years down the road, they'll go like, oh, right. So what is it? I heard this saying, may you plant a seed for a tree whose shade you shall never experience or
Right.
enjoy. Right.
Right.
And because you just never know. But you be inspirational to that one person, and then who knows what can happen later.
And that's one of the things I think is wrong with the world right now is that we're all kind of like in our own little box, or we've been put in our own little box, and we're told, like, how to think, how to feel, what to do, what to eat, what to not, and it's just like this controlling thing that, well, you can't be around these people because you're not the same. And through the power of storytelling, we're discovering that, hey, we're all a lot more alike than we're told we are or that we thought we are. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this podcast. I was dragged into podcasting, kicking and screaming too, just like the blog, but obviously it worked out. But it was like the power of sharing our stories It's just opening up so many options for people. I mean, so many wonderful connections. All of these things that you're hearing from other people, the things that I'm learning from my guests, and the things that I'm hearing from my listeners. It's just an amazing thing. We have got to share our stories because that, I think, is where our human connection really lies.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. So the point about learning from your guests,
Hmm.
right? I know a lot of successful people who can stand at the front of the room and I'm the guy and I'm going to tell you what to do and this is how to live your life. Oh, it's pathetic. And there's people going fawning over each other for his attention. I know because I used to be one of those guys.
Mm.
It that what's that saying? It takes a village, not to
Hmm.
just to raise a child, but to raise a good human, right?
Right.
So we are never done learning. I don't
Hmm.
care how many degrees you have,
Hmm.
right? Like I just roped a retired major general into. I've got a summit coming up, and this is a guy who's doing this amazing stuff. He's had his own issues, but he wrote a book on being bipolar in the military. So he,
I think I've
right?
seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, Greg Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the bipolar general.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah. Okay.
man, he's fantastic. And we hit it off. And so I'm putting some together. I reached out, like, Greg, I want you to come speak. And he's like, absolutely. So, but the
Yes,
point
sir.
is, great. He's in his 60s. He's
Uh-huh.
retired. Retired major general. Are you kidding me? But he is open, man. This guy is open to continue to learn about himself and help other
Mhm,
people. And I was like, oh my
mhm,
God, right? It's just such a joy. So we're never done learning unless you
mhm,
shut yourself off.
mhm.
So I'm glad you made that point because that's such a big deal.
Well, I'm very passionate about lifelong learning because I think when we stop learning is when we just shrivel up and die, or we become so stuck in our ways that we don't listen. It just, I don't know, it creates this sense of isolation. And again, even more judgment of other people. But
Hmm.
that interest, that curiosity, that desire to either learn new things, explore new things, experience new things, no matter what it is, that's the ultimate anti-aging, I think.
Yeah, yeah. God, we're so competitive here,
Mhm.
right? And we base who we are off of how someone else is done, and
Mhm.
nobody judges us like we judge ourselves,
I
right?
know.
Nobody is our harshest critic but us.
Mhm.
And we don't like it when people judge us, and yet we do it all the time,
Mhm.
right? To
Mhm.
ourselves and others. It's
Mhm.
fascinating. It's
Mhm.
fascinating. If we really knew who we were, we wouldn't be worried about any of that,
Right.
you know?
I want to go back to that guy on the standing on the stage and just, lecturing to people. You know, everybody's an expert. And I always like to tell my clients and, my friends, it's like, be your own expert. You know more about yourself than anybody else ever will. And just listen to that inner voice and that inner wisdom. But that's the one thing that I really detest more than anything else is somebody standing on their little soapbox or their pedestal or whatever, looking down at me and lecturing to me what I should do. Boy, that lights a fire under me like you wouldn't believe. It's like, don't you even start to think about trying to tell me what I should do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love the rebels, man. That's another reason we get along so well. Love the
Yeah,
rebels.
yeah, I
We don't
know.
always make the best decisions, but yeah,
Well, who does?
I want to think for myself, and you're gonna fumble and you're gonna bumble. You do it
Mhm,
anyway,
mhm,
right? But
mhm,
fumble and bumble for yourself.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this in one of the techniques I'm trained in. We always have a saying that there's no such things as making mistakes, only opportunities to learn. There's no right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse. Just opportunities to learn. If you're not making mistakes, you're probably not learning because you're not putting
Yes.
yourself out there and you're not getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. There's a Buddhist monk by the name of Anam Thupten,
Hmm.
and he's got some books out there, but he would on one of his audiobooks, he was telling a story about another monk friend of his who was dying of cancer.
Hmm.
And his monk friend said, well, this is just another AFOG. He says, what is that? He says, another effing opportunity for growth. And then on him, he goes, a little unconventional, but it worked for him.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a great attitude and a
But
great
it
way of looking at it.
but it is, right? That's all we've got here is lessons and change.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
how do you want to show up? Who do you want to be? That's
Mhm.
where all my teaching goes to. That's where everything I work around because that's where I am still working on. Who do I actually want to show up as in this world?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And we can go to
And
Bruce
what's
Lee and talk about being water.
right.
You know, I mean, it's fantastic.
And what's the legacy you wanna leave?
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
now tell us about co-authoring the other book. Tell us about, let me see, what is that? It's The Change, and that was actually volume 17, so tell us more about that.
Yeah, so these two master coaches, and one's also one was Jim Britt, who actually mentored Tony Robbins back in the day,
Wow.
um, and then the other guy is Jim Lutz, who he's a coach and a hypnotist and a business guru. They created this thing called the Change,
Mhm.
and so they find people that they want to bring into these books, and they partner all these co-authors together in a volume, and then they teach you how to work with each other to collaborate and create other things from that
Mhm.
space. It was fantastic. So my the chapter that I put in there was about continually returning to this beginner's mindset.
Mm.
um, can I tell you the chapter name?
Sure.
It's I
Uh-oh,
don't.
wait a minute. I'm not drinking anything, so okay, I
Okay,
won't
are we
choke.
good?
We're
It's
good.
it's I don't know shit,
Okay.
and it's this not wanting to be the smartest guy in the room, right?
Mhm.
It's showing up in this other way, and then I do this and I do this and I fumble and bumble and trip and fall and f up and get up and dust myself off and go again. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. All right. So that, okay, that really wasn't working for me. Now I get it. I need to go
Mhm.
over here a little bit. And then that'll take me a little further, right? It'll take me a little further. There's
Mhm.
no straight lines, people.
Right.
There's no straight lines. So if you can come back to this place of, oh, okay, so and so told me X, Y, and Z. I wasn't in a place to listen. Now I get it.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
people genuinely want to help. I think a lot of advice is misdirected,
Mhm.
um, and it's usually not well received. But I think people genuinely want to help, but we're usually not in a space to hear it. So that was my chapter for that.
Mhm. Okay, that's really funny. I have to laugh because I keep saying that I want to write a book, and it's going to be on things I don't know or understand. So it's going to be a pretty big,
Perfect.
right? It's going to be like those old fashioned, what the Encyclopedia Britannica. There could be volumes and volumes of those. But yeah, things I don't know or understand. And actually, I was telling it to one of my friends who is not an author or a writer, but she says, yeah. And she says, and the title could be My Best Guess Is.
Ooh,
And it's like, oh my God, Christy, does this mean I have to do it?
I like that.
Isn't that good? My best guess
Oh, that's
is.
fantastic.
Yeah. Because who knows? I mean, there's so many things in this world we really do not know or understand. And, maybe we can come up with some of the answers. Who knows?
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I
Why,
love
thank you.
that.
I'll take a bow or a curtsy, but I'm sitting
Yes.
down. So, okay, now tell us about the Save Two.
Mm. So Save
To me,
2 was
that seems like, and again, we're going to do another little pun here or play on words, a pet project.
oh, it
Bum, bum.
is. It is. It is. So th this is an extension of the practice that I have, right, with the
Right,
dogs and men.
right.
But how do I make it accessible to people who maybe can't afford it? They literally can't afford it. They can barely buy groceries or maybe on the
Right,
street, right? So
right.
um, I'm like, okay, I'm not wealthy. I don't have tons to give people in that way, but what I can do is share this with them and help
Mhm,
them maybe get 1% better, 1 degree better,
mhm,
right? And then
mhm,
maybe that's enough.
mhm,
So I created the nonprofit, um, and I've been working locally with a place called the Housing Catalyst. So this organization it's another nonprofit. They get people
Mhm.
off the street and into
Mhm.
permanent housing.
Mhm.
Now, some of those people have animals. So I come in under dog training or animal training, whether they have a dog or cat or whatever. But I help them just maybe make a little shift to where they see their animal differently and what something, how do I put it, that there's more potential there than just a comfort measure.
Mhm.
And it's been pretty neat. A guy came in the other day. I do it once a month on Wednesdays, and this guy came in and he was just shut down. Oh, he could barely look at me. He had this tiny little dog with him, but the dog opened up the conversation, right? So I didn't even look at him because he didn't want to make eye contact. So I just started talking about the dog, got the dog's attention, um, and then started to open up just a tiny little bit, right? And gave him something that he probably didn't even know he needed in that moment. So
Oh.
yeah,
Oh.
so I'm going to continue this.
Mhm.
I've connected with the guy who runs Marley's Mutts
Mhm.
out of California. They actually do a prison program to train service dogs.
Okay.
How freaking cool is that? There's a
Right.
program here in Sterling actually that does that as well. So I want to connect with them. But I'm trying to
Wow.
collaborate through the nonprofit on that side of things. I don't want to train dogs, but
Mhm.
I can help the people who have the dogs in their care
Mhm.
doing what I do. So that's what the Save Two is about.
Wow. Okay, I'm just going to toss this out there. I don't know if you'd want to connect with this woman. She's actually out of Atlanta, and she started a nonprofit for providing a service that helps abused women or men who are staying with their abusers because they don't want to leave their pet behind because there's a lot of places that won't take pets. Well, this woman started and she was just thinking, locally, Atlanta, that area. In 2 years' time, it has gone nationwide. So they will actually find free housing for the pet. So the abused person can find a place to live, blah, blah, blah. And finally, when they can get a place that would accept the pet, then they, come back and they get their dog or their cat or whatever. But it's called Praline's Backyard. And it's a nonprofit that is actually nationwide. I interviewed her.
Yes, I would love to talk to her. I know a woman in the UK who's working around the animals and domestic violence and
Hmm.
oh yeah,
Hmm.
fantastic. Plus I have some other ideas. So
Yep. And there's also one up in Bailey. It's called Mountain Peace. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
hmm,
It's called Mountain Peace, and what they do, it's the only like women's shelter or whatever in like the Jefferson County area. Actually, I think this side of the Front Range, who takes care of finds housing and care for the animals as well as the abused person. Because a lot of them, they're up there in the mountains, and you could be talking dogs, cats, ponies, horses, goats, and they will take care of the animals. And they were the first one that ever did that. So it's called Mountain Peace.
oh yeah, bring it. Love to
Yeah.
talk to them.
Yeah. I actually did was a couple of years ago, probably about 8 years ago. I did a women's self-defense class for them.
Very
Really great
cool.
organization. Yep.
Man, there's so many amazing people out there doing things. I want to highlight a guy real quick. Or Canine Heroes for Heroes. So this organization will provide a service dog. They're new, so they're still raising a bunch of money, but they'll
Hmm.
provide service dogs to veterans and first responders at no cost.
Oh,
Now, folks, I don't know if you know how much it takes to create a service dog based on the skills required and the training needs, but it's between $15,000 and $50,000,
yeah.
right? So Joe Gianti created this organization and he's killing it. He's getting attention, he's getting funding. There's other ways, right? There's other
Hmm.
ways. There's always ways to do things. So
Hmm.
there's always someone to help. He's creating a database of all the other service dog organizations so that people can finally try to work together. Because
Yes.
every all these nonprofits are out there trying to onesie twosie, and it's still a competition thing. Like we're
Hmm.
fighting for money and funding. Well, stop that.
Yeah.
Get together, help each other out.
A rising tide lifts all ships. So
Yes,
if you could send me the link to him and we could include that in the show notes, that'd be great.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's got his own service dog and he's got a massive heart. This guy is amazing.
Wow. Okay, I love the fact that before you even went into his story was I wrote this down that there are so many amazing people out there, and I think we forget that because we're in our little, shells or whatever, or we hear and see so much negative stuff that's out there.
Mm.
Actually, it's shoved on our throat pretty much 24/7. To realize how many really wonderful people are in the world who are really working hard, doing good work, putting their heart and soul into helping people, other people and animals. That's really another reason why I do this show because it's so uplifting and it's so positive and we just hear so much crap all the time.
Yeah. Well, I don't watch the news.
Yeah,
I,
because you're
I
smart.
I stopped watching the news. Well, I'm not that smart. Someone else told me about it. So, um, Dr. Aziz Gazipura
Mm-hmm.
has written some great books. And the first one I read of his it's called Not Nice, and how we're stuck in this I have to be nice thing. And all we're doing is putting ourselves second or third because we think we have to show up a certain way for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not saying go out and be a jerk, but
Mm-hmm.
you need to start to take care of yourself.
Right.
One of the things in there was doing a challenge of not watching the news for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
I felt fantastic when I stopped watching the news because I didn't have all this crap floating around in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it another 30 days. And then, so the rest is history. That was years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't watch it.
And that just goes back to our conversation about the neuroplasticity and our brains, taking in that information, recording it like a computer, like a hard drive.
Yeah.
And what you put in is what you get out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I try and limit myself as much as possible. Yeah, but I don't want somebody else telling me how to feel
No,
or
no.
how to think.
I think the powers, they want us scared and buying stuff, right? And if we
Mhm.
just do those two things, then we're easily controlled. So
Absolutely. That's funny.
yeah.
This podcast before this was all about it. You ought to go back and listen to that one. It's really fun. We had
Yeah.
it was another symbiotic relationship with me and the host or me and the guest. It was just pretty fantastic. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are seeing that we're being controlled a little bit more than we thought we were. So time to take those controls back.
Yeah. There's an energy teacher by the name of Jeffrey Allen. And
Mhm.
one of the things he teaches is bring your energies back. You're giving
Mm.
them away to everybody else. So when you're doing whatever it is you're trying to do, come on, whoa, 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 you're out there. Bring your energies back. Bring them all back. Come on, turn that off. Do this, do this,
Mhm,
do this, do this.
mhm, mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's an interesting guy.
Awesome. So, Michael, this has been a fabulous conversation. And
Hell
I
yeah.
have enjoyed it. Even when you made me almost choke on my water, that was fine. It's well worth the laugh. So, tell us as we wrap up here, where can people find you? How can they get a hold of you? How can they support you? Just take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So I'm on LinkedIn, Michael Overlie, and also Dogs and Men LLC. And I just put some pretty simple stuff out there. Right
Mhm.
now, I'm doing a 26-day thing where we're literally running the alphabet and showing people the dogs might be doing more for them than they realize using one letter at a time.
Okay,
So
I saw
every
that. That's on your Facebook page?
and on my Facebook too. I put it on Facebook also.
Okay, so it's on LinkedIn and Facebook.
LinkedIn and Facebook. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I do more stuff on LinkedIn. I don't spend as much time on Facebook, but so
Yeah,
it's
me
on
too.
both there. Michael Overly on both, and then Dogs and Men LLC.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, new community coming. It'll be
mhm,
at you can see the landing page. It's dogsandmen.com.
mhm.
And then yeah, we've got a summit at the end of February.
Wow.
Um, it's called Breaking the Cycle, Becoming the Man You Needed.
Wow.
And I've
Okay,
got
is that in
well,
person or virtual and in person or just
it'll be
virtual?
virtual.
Okay.
It'll just be purely virtual. It's a mini summit. I think people are so burned out, zoomed out, you know.
Yeah.
So we created this thing where it'll be dripped out over a number of
Mhm,
days, like
mhm.
a regular summit would be. And then people can, if they want to, they can access the recordings whenever they want.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So you have given us so many wonderful insights, valuable tips, really, great information. Before we close, is there one final pearl of wisdom you would like to drop on the audience before we sign off?
oh, you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Oh,
That is really hard for us to hear, especially when we're hurting and uncomfortable. But if you were supposed to be somewhere else, you would be. So accept it, find comfort in it, whatever it is. That okay, I'm here where I'm at, and I'm
mhm,
really hurting right now, but I can choose to do something else, or maybe choose to go a different way.
mhm.
Nobody can make that decision for you. So yeah, you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Wow. Okay. That's powerful. Thanks again, Michael. It's been an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Keep doing this fantastic work.
Oh, thank you. And you too. And if you ever want to come back and give us an update, you know how to find me. You got my number more or
Oh
less.
yeah. Oh yeah. And you're
Yeah,
you're just down the road from me too. So
that's true. Okay. And I just want the listeners to know that if they're not watching this on YouTube, they're missing a little bit of entertainment because Michael's shirt matches that beautiful piece of work of art behind him. So,
mm,
even if you don't watch the entire video on
mhm.
YouTube, you really ought to go and check it out because he's just so well coordinated. It was like, how did you manage that? And he didn't even realize it.
That's
So,
funny. Actually, I've got a matching thong on too. So
well, you don't have to share that. No, we
no.
don't want to see
Okay.
that. No, but
Okay.
thanks anyway. Thanks for the offer. Okay, Michael, thanks again for being on the show. You're amazing.
Thank you so much.
And everybody, thank you so much for listening. Oh my goodness, what a great episode. Make sure you share it with everybody you know, anybody who's struggling with any mental health issues, maybe need a little bit of help, maybe a way to connect with their dog, their animal, or other people. Just contact Michael and find out a little bit more about his D.O.G method. Check out his book. You can get it on Amazon. I already looked it up. And just remember that no matter where you are, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.